All right, my name is Ben Oliver, and we are doing government right to privacy and mass data collection, NSA, intelligence kind of things. I've researched more along the lines of what the NSA collects, how they collect it, and what they're going to do with that information.
I'm Abby Dawes, and I kind of researched a couple of different things, but I mainly focused on the legality of it.
I'm Jay Lux, and I have focused primarily upon the ways that people react to this information gathering, how they've tried to maybe prevent it, and a little bit on the counter arguments towards the right to privacy and how the government is doing what they're doing. No further questions.
All right, let's talk about the right to privacy. Is there a right to privacy? What's the big hubbub about? Why are we having a panel discussion about the right to privacy?
Right to privacy refers to the concept that one's personal information is protected from public scrutiny, and this has really come up in the media recently, debating on whether it is legal that we have, that the government has surveillance on all of their citizens.
One of the issues that was brought up recently was ways that the government purchases or shows that they purchase what's called your metadata from internet service providers. And the metadata is basically an information trail that you leave whenever you're on the internet, or things that whenever you access it, you leave behind traces. The internet service provider that provides you the internet, they have access to that because they give it to you. And it was kind of just an argument towards whether or not we should be able to see what the government is doing with it, or when they're buying it or something.
So there's companies that have this metadata, which is like data about data. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's basically data to find your data.
Okay.
So that's
makes you cross out a little bit. Data about data about data. Okay.
So like when you access the website,
okay,
you have to. The internet service provider has to give you access to the internet itself to get to it.
Right.
And when you do that, they collect where you're going because they need to figure out where you're going. So you send them a message for wherever you want it from, and then they give it back along those lines.
Okay.
And they keep that information, where you've gone and what you've accessed.
So you said, so companies have information about me, data about my data, and they're selling it to the government? Is that what you said?
Yes. Well, and the government's buying it from them. And
Okay.
that's partially what the NSA deals with. And they gather it in bulk, in mass, and then has some other stuff for that list of the metadata they've gathered.
Yeah, so they will gather anything that really leads them to believe that there's something wrong. So kind of the post 9/11 atmosphere that we live in right now, they've gone from really none of this type of situation to, after the Patriot Act was passed, they've really kind of overcompensated for the lack of things that they've been doing, and they collect anything from phone calls to internet searches, all kinds of activities, videos you've watched, websites you've read, looking for something that might flag you as a potential threat.
So they only collect data of things that are wrong, is what you said.
They collect all data, but they're only monitoring, like live monitoring or red flags of things that are wrong.
Molly, I'm sorry, Abby, how do you feel about that?
I'm personally against it.
Okay.
I believe that as United States citizens, we have one of the freedoms that we have is our right to privacy. Just because we have in the Fourth Amendment the privacy of person and possessions are against unreasonable searches, and if the government is going through our personal records without our consent, I believe that's a violation of it.
But it doesn't belong to us, it belongs to the company, right?
It's our personal data, so I believe that belongs to us.
Now, does anybody else have access to that metadata besides the government?
Yes. The companies themselves, and one of the major ones for the NSA is Google. And Google kind of, in a way, open sources it. So, for instance, if you were to maybe Google yourself, you could find images or information from things that you may have posted on social media or anything like that from forever ago, and they keep it, but they don't really give a reason why. They keep it and everyone has access to it. It's just open source of your information that you may not want them to have.
So Google has pictures of me? I feel weird about that. I don't know why.
So, but besides, I guess what I'm trying to get at, so besides the government, like who else would Google or Yahoo or Bing sell to? Or whoever these ISPs are?
It might not even necessarily be selling to, just the fact that they're making this data available to one entity of the government makes it I guess accessible to other maybe malicious sources. So if the government can get it, there's a good chance that other people can get it. And so when you're collecting really sensitive documents like medical records or like credit card information, payments, bank statements, having all that floating around can be dangerous.
Do you think there's any for-profit commercial companies out there that would want your metadata?
I would think so.
Why?
Because they can sell it to the government or
So why would they want your metadata? I mean, yes, they can sell it, but what's the point of selling it? Why does somebody want it?
they can track your spending habits,
Okay.
different. So like when you're shopping on Google and
Okay.
you're shopping for shoes and you close the tab and open a new one,
Okay.
and an advertisement pops up for the shoes that you were looking for
Ah.
right before. That data that you're looking at is valuable to other companies to know what to show you to possibly
I
get
believe
you.
that's called targeted advertising. Why is that important to companies, Abby?
It's important to companies, and just like the fact that it will constantly bring it up for you in the forefront of your attention to get you to buy something.
Okay. But Jay, why is it bad if this company X knows that I like Nike shoes and I wear a 9.5 wide? So why is that bad? That's great. They can tell me they got this great new shoe that I would like and it's on sale. Why is that bad?
Well, that instance itself can be good, but there's multiple instances, and I've experienced it myself,
Mhm.
where I'll maybe misclick on an ad or something, or I'll go somewhere and for the program that reads all of it, that collects the metadata, might read what I'm doing wrong, and I'll get an ad for something I don't even know, or I'll get pop-ups for things that I don't want, and it gets in the way, and it's a hassle. And the issue is that's my information that's not being used. The intent may be well, but I could do without it, to be honest. I could do without risking having ads that I don't want, or ads in general that I don't want to have just popping up all around.
Can any of you speak to statistical numbers or information on the money that's to be had in targeted advertising? I mean, for myself, I just tend to ignore those or use an ad blocker or something like that because it's an annoyance, right? I mean, for the most part. Why is there any money in that? Why even have those?
I don't know.
You guys are really focused on internet collection mostly at this point. Can you speak to other forms of information, metadata, maybe not from the internet, that's being collected, specifically in the United States? And then can you also speak to outside of the United States?
We definitely focus more on within the United States, but aside from internet searches, since the Patriot Act in 2001, they've really been just focusing on any type of communication. So even phone calls have been monitored specifically, just in search for terrorist threats or other illegal activity. And even after 14 years that this has been going on, there hasn't been a phone record has been used to identify theft or prevent a terrorist act.
Does that violate any kind of laws if the government is listening in on phone calls?
Well, one of the things that the court system has really tried to, trying to decide on how this kind of fits into the Constitution, since it's not directly stated. One of the things they use in their interpretation is the 14th Amendment, which is the Due Process Clause, and that states that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of a citizen of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And they started to interpret that kind of at a broad scale, like, so therefore it will like cover the right to privacy, giving citizens that right.
So you're saying we're stretching the 14th Amendment to include this?
I wouldn't necessarily say stretching it. I would just, I mean,
Sure.
It's saying that, like, I mean, one of our freedoms is that we get like a trial by jury,
Right.
and all of these things. But if we don't even get the chance, then it's kind of breaking that.
Do we feel like we're adequately covered with laws to address situations with data collection, data usage? I mean, what if somebody's doing something we don't like with our metadata? Do we have enough laws on the books to cover that? I mean, certainly an amendment's a big thing. I mean, there aren't a lot of those. There's at least 14 we've established, right? So, what do we think?
I mean, as much as like public sources of regulation, I feel like that's as much as we can do.
Mhm.
I mean, someone looking to do harm isn't going to use mainstream internet or telecommunication options, which are what's most heavily regulated or targeted with security. They use things like these like prepaid, untraceable cell phones or just dark web communications, which is much harder to monitor.
Is that how the students are getting around our internet filter, Neil?
I think that's how they Snapchat.
Yeah, Jay, I need to talk with you about that later. Okay, so Jay, you're handling reactions to
Yeah.
these sorts of things. Do the people who are reacting to these sorts of things feel like we've got adequate laws to cover this? Can we'll just take it to court and we'll deal with it all there, right?
In a way, a lot of them haven't. They haven't really. There was a graph on The Guardian that focused
Mhm.
on people who believe it was a violation of our civil liberties
Mhm.
and a violation of our, or not in violation, but to protect us, like for it. There was the for and against, and it was, since the Patriot Act, it had been, they were for it, but
Mhm.
as of recent, and the graph had gone up to, I think it was 2013, and they had switched over to it's in violation of our civil liberties as a majority over the other. So it would stand to show that public opinion has shifted to not liking the violation of their civil liberties.
I would submit to you that the laws are historically far behind the demands of technology because technology is ever changing. It's good, it keeps me in a job, but it's ever changing. Social media, new advents in the ways to communicate, all of these new opportunities, laws don't morph and change quite that much. They don't typically evolve as fast. They actually never evolve as fast as technology. So we're constantly doing what Abby described, which is trying to go, okay, what do we have on the books now? Can we say that that covers this? Maybe yes, maybe no. And lawyers make a lot of money arguing that, trying to set precedent and say, does this cover this? Does this address that? Is what this person's doing bad because of this other thing? I'm pretty sure when the 14th Amendment was written, they weren't thinking about who Snapchatted what or tweeted whatever. They weren't. So we're trying to go, well, does this fall under that? And if not, do we need to write a new law? And if we do, what does it need to say? Does it cover this? Does it cover that? Does it cover the other thing? So I would say probably looking at it from a historical perspective, we're well far behind in lawmaking. But then that comes to who gets to write the new law and does it cover what we need to? And there's always some consternation there. So.
Switching gears just a little bit here, can you talk to us about our current president and where he stands as far as his rights to privacy? Have there been anything recently in the news? Maybe piggyback off of that, can you talk to me about net neutrality at all? Anything along those lines?
For the most part, Trump hasn't done all that much with like the NSA or something like that, or what I've been able to find. I haven't been able to find much for that. But as of recent in the government, there was the recent bill that I had said earlier that they were trying to pass against letting the government do what they want with it, basically. And if I remember correctly, it was to not tell us like what they do or how much or something like that. So that's kind of where the government stands. They're trying to push towards being more free to do what they want with their information, like piggybacking constantly on the Patriot Act.
you talk about technology, we mentioned obviously ISPs enjoy collecting your information and selling it to advertising agencies and government institutions or things like that. Can you talk about other companies in the technology field and their position on this issue? Major companies?
People or companies like there was Google, Yahoo, Bing, all like major search engines and email providers. They are for it because it's another source of income for them. It's more money that they can use to further advance all of their stuff. And I mean, for them, it's kind of it just goes along with the job because they're just collecting information. And I mean, in a way, what they do to us is they don't necessarily sell us because we get it for free access, but it's kind of the same thing, but this way they get money out of it by selling it to other people who are more desirable for the information.
Oh, we get free access to what? What do we get free access to?
Like Google, like the search engine itself, using it.
I'll say my internet's not free, I know that. That's why I use it at school all the time.
What about social media? Are places like Facebook and Instagram, are they also selling our information? And do you think that because you have chosen to put it out there on social media, are you relinquishing some of your right to privacy?
With social media like Instagram and I think there was in Snapchat, there is a difference between being in a public setting, like the actual setting in the app for being public and private. When you do public, I would say you're selling your right to privacy because you're basically opening it up into the public. And then with private, if they have access to that at all, which I can't remember, but I hope they don't. But it's set to private, so ideally they shouldn't have it if you don't want them to. You said it's private.
If you all make the choice, do you think you have the right to be anonymous on your cell phones or with your internet usage?
I definitely think we have that right.
Ben's really quiet. You're worrying me, Ben.
I mean, I would say that there's a lot that we relinquish when we don't read that terms of agreement page. We just hit accept and continue to set up your fingerprint for your phone. Because I mean, Apple, Microsoft, Google, they're all very large contributors into the government's what they call their PRISM program, which is they're just like the raw intelligence where they get all this information from. And so I feel like that people relinquish some of their rights when they do that. But
Wasn't there a case fairly recently, though, where Apple was refusing to relinquish their
Yeah.
rights? So how does that tie in?
So what the Apple kind of stood up to the government was requesting them after a shooting in San Bernardino to kind of create this backdoor that they can get into any cell phone, any Apple cell phone, iPhone.
Yeah, they were asking for one particular one, weren't they?
They were asking for one particular one, but they were asking for it to, and it could be used over a bunch of them.
Okay.
And so they ended up backing their consumer base, saying that we're not gonna, this isn't something we're gonna do.
Okay, so
The government did eventually get into it.
The government wanted into a cell phone. They asked Apple, who's a great company, by the way. No, just kidding. They asked Apple. They said, we need to get in the cell phone. Apple said no. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay, and why did Apple say no?
Apple said no because in order to do that, they would have to weaken their encryption in order to get in, which would provide backdoors to other hackers that could also be able to get in.
They would have to weaken their encryption. So they would have to build something that breaks their phones, and they didn't want to do that.
Yes.
You said that they were able to get in anyway?
Because they refused, they were later, a source came forth and had the password and was able to get in. I think it was one of the parents, I believe.
JB, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I would just not. So far, all of this has been dealing with the United States, and you've mentioned the amendments. I believe it was it was a private Israeli company that was able to hack into or through Apple's encryption, and they were the ones that provided the information for the terror shooting in San Bernardino, and then they gave that information or sold it to the NSA. So Apple supposedly